Hello, welcome to my channel, Another Bibliophile Reads, and this is late October, which means coming up real soon is a major event for BookTube, and that is Nonfiction November. This has been going on for a number of years, way before I joined 2 years ago, and this is an event. It is curated, maybe created, by Olive at her channel, A Book Olive, and it is to get people to read more nonfiction. A lot of people have this idea that nonfiction is dry, dreary, and rather dull, but that's not true. There is some of it that fits that categorization. There is some rather academic nonfiction that is intended mostly for scholars, but that's not true of all nonfiction. There is a lot of engaging and exciting and entertaining nonfiction. And for Nonfiction November, you can actually read any of those types because there are people who like scholarly nonfiction. But me, I prefer the more mainstream nonfiction. And I'm no stranger to nonfiction. This year, so far, I have read 30 books of nonfiction. Last year in 2022, I read 34. So I'm going to exceed that 34 in 2023, mostly because I was a judge in the BookTube Prize nonfiction category this year for 3 rounds. So that's a lot of nonfiction that I have to read as a judge. And I enjoyed most of it, because most of it's pretty good. There was one book that was a little dry, but we won't mention that. This is to get people to read nonfiction. And to participate in Nonfiction November, you just have to read one book of nonfiction, and you are participating. Now, every year, Olive picks 4 words for you to sort of focus your choices in nonfiction. You don't have to go with these words. You can go in your own direction, ignore them completely, read just one book, read books for these four words, or even more. It's all up to you. There is no criticism. No one's judging you. Just to read, the idea is just to read a book of nonfiction, or more than one. Now, the words she has chosen this year are fraud, web, capital, display. You can interpret these words and fit them to books in any way you choose. You can be rather strict or rather loose in how you interpret these words and fit them to other books. Now, I'm going to say that I'm going to be rather loose, and some of my connections are going to be what Mark Twain said, a stretcher. They may not quite fit, but, we're just going to go with it because they're the books that I want to read this year, or not this year, this month. And I do have 4 books. Now, for fraud, I am going to be picking a book, How Jesus Became God, The Exaltation of a Jewish Preacher from Galilee by Bart D. Ehrman. Ehrman is a professor of Christianity, I believe in South Carolina. He is a non-believer. He does not believe that the Gospels are true in the religious sense. He is definitely on the side that says there was an historical Jesus that grew into the Christian religion. And that is what this book is about. Because as he says, the claim at the heart of Christian faith is that Jesus of Nazareth was and is God. But this is not what the original disciples believed during Jesus's lifetime, and is not what Jesus claimed about himself. So this is a very non-religious look at the historical Jesus and how he became God and the figurehead of a religion. Now, true believers are going to say that that Ehrman is a bit fraudulent there. He says he's not looking at the truth. Or I'm going to say that the Christian faith is a fraud because it is based on an untruth. And that's my connection. The second book I am going to be reading is Webb, and I'm going to be reading Agent Sonya, Moscow's most daring wartime spy by Ben MacInttyre. He is sort of the Jean Le Carré of nonfiction during the Cold War. And this is another pick for me in Dr. November, another event I'm going to be participating in. And this is about a spy in England. Where is she from? She is in England. There we go. In 1942, in a quiet village in leafy English Cotswolds, a thin, elegant woman lived in a small cottage with her 3 children and her husband, who worked as a machinist nearby. Ursula Burton was friendly but reserved and spoke English with a slight foreign accent. By all accounts, she seemed to be living a simple, unassuming life. Her neighbors in the village knew little about her, but she was a spy for Moscow. I have read one other book by Ben MacInttyre, Spy and the Traitor, and it was really a fascinating read. That was about getting a defecting agent from England for England in Moscow out of the Soviet Union. Great book. The third book for Capital, and for Webb, it's a web of spies. Okay, it's a stretcher. Book number 3 for Capital, G-Man, J. Edgar Hoover and the Making of the American Century by Beverly Gage. Do we really know a lot about J. Edgar Hoover? We know he was the founder of the FBI, and he was a long-serving director of the FBI. And I have read fictional accounts of J. Edgar Hoover in James Ellroy's American tabloid series, and he also features in a book, the Killing of the Flower Moon. And he's a fascinating figure. So I really want to get in to know the real J. Edgar Hoover. And a little bit of a description. We remember him as a bulldog, squat frame, bulging wide-set eyes, fearsome jowls. But in 1924, when he became the director of the FBI, he had been the trim, dazzling wunderkind of the administrative state, buzzing with energy, big ideas for reform. He transformed a failing law enforcement backwater, riddled with scandal, into a modern machine. He believed in the power of the federal government to do great things for the nation and its citizens. He also believed that certain people, many of them communists or racial minorities, or both, did not deserve to be included in that America project. Hoover rose to power and then stayed there decade after decade, using the tools of state to create a personal fiefdom unrivaled in U.S. history. I'm going to be doing this as a buddy read with Stephanie Cohen. I'm really looking forward to this. My last book is going to be for the word display. And again, this is a bit of a stretcher. And I forgot to say how G-Man related to Capitol. He worked in the capital of Washington, D.C. Okay, now back to Webb. It's just this is display, and it is the book I'm going to be reading is A Worse Place Than Hell: How the Civil War Battle of Fredericksburg Changed a Nation by John Matteson. And display is that the war is a big display. It was a show, a big show, people fighting. A stretcher. This is described as the book. December 1862 drove the United States toward a breaking point. The Battle of Fredericksburg shattered Union forces and Northern confidence. As Abraham Lincoln's government threatened to fracture, this critical moment also tested 5 extraordinary individuals whose lives reflect the soul of a nation. The changes they underwent led to a profound repercussions in the country's law, literature, politics, and popular mythology. Taken together, their stories offer a striking striking restatement of what is meant to be American. Now, I live in Fredericksburg, not the downtown Fredericksburg that had the battle, but I live across the Rappahannock. So I can sort of see Fredericksburg. I could sort of see Fredericksburg if I got down from behind my house and, went through some of the woods. I could see it. And it is quite possible that the Union troops had camps nearby where I lived, or possibly even on my land. Not sure about that, but it's definitely possible. And so that's why I'm reading A Worse Place Than Hell, because it's a very local book to me. And that I'm also going to be doing as a buddy read with Alan at Big Hard Books and Classics. And that is what I'm doing for Nonfiction November. I hope a lot of people join Nonfiction November. You don't have to follow the prompts. All you have to do is read one book. And you are doing Nonfiction November, especially for people who don't normally read nonfiction. I highly encourage them to look over some of the videos that people are making for Nonfiction November and pick out a nonfiction book that they think is interesting, because nonfiction really is a great category of books to be reading. Thank you for watching, and keep on reading.